daily trading pattern, 5, 10, 15K profit days, extremely simple.
Hello and welcome back to Strategy Audit. Today we are testing FVG, fair value gap based trading strategy. The video explains a set of rules: higher time frame, fair value gaps, midpoint reactions, liquidity areas, 1 minute change of character, FIB retracement, and then an FVG entry. At first, this sounds like something we can code and backtest, but once I started recreating the actual examples from the video, I ran into serious problem. The rules explained at the beginning are not always the rules used in the examples. It kind of makes a proper objective audit of the full strategy impossible. So the full strategy starts on the 15 minutes charts. The trader marks fair value gaps and pays attention to the midpoint of those gaps. If price comes back into the zone and respects the midpoint, that can become a potential reaction area. Then he looks for higher impact areas. Those are places where support becomes resistance, resistance becomes support, or where price breaks structure and comes back for a retest. After that, he drops to a 1 minute chart and looks for change of character. Then he wants the 1 minute FVG that caused that shift, preferably around 50 to 61.8 FIB retracement area. The basic trade is then simple: enter from 1 minute FVG, use a fixed R target, and move to break even once price clears the structure created during the change of character. There are also two extra pieces in the video. First, the session timing. He's mainly focused on the New York Open because that is where he expects volume and movement. The EA includes a session window which you can set as you wish. Second is the RSI highlight indicator. This is used more for trade management and runner exits than for the core entry. The problem is that it is proprietary and the exact formula is not clearly defined, so I'm not going to pretend I can reproduce it perfectly. For the full EA, I included optional management variants, but for the clean audit, I'll leave RSI out and test the price action logic itself. Higher time frame FVG reactions, confirmation, entry, stop, and R-based management. This is the clean version, but the live examples are not always that clean. And here is the catch. While recreating one of the examples, I found multiple places where the rules were banned. First, the TradingView FVG indicator removed a 15-minute FVG after price invalidated, and that makes sense. Because earlier in the explanation, he said if price shoots through the gap and closes beyond it, the gap should no longer be valid. But in the example, that same zone was manually drawn back onto the chart and later used as a part of the trade idea. Maybe an experienced discretionary trader still sees value there, that is possible, but for a mechanical audit, this is a major problem. Because now the rule is no longer trade valid FVGs. The rules becomes trade valid FVGs unless the trader decides the invalidated one still matters. That cannot be coded objectively without inventing extra logic. And that was not the only issue. The explanation says the entry should come from the 1 minute FVG that caused the change of character, preferably around the midpoint and aligned with the FIB retracement. But in the example, the entry was not really from the midpoint, it was to the near edge of the gap. And the FVG used was not cleanly the one that caused the change of character. It was more like the only nearby level that could realistically trigger the trade. On the top of that, the FIB was drawn in a way that was hard to define mechanically. Instead of a clean impulse lag, it looked like it was anchored from a candle that only made sense after looking at the finished chart. So at that point, we are no longer dealing with a clean mechanical strategy. We are dealing with discretionary trade breakdown. That does not mean the trader is fake. That does not mean the setup cannot work. But it does mean I cannot honestly say I coded the exact strategy and tested it, because there is no exact version to code. So here is how I decided to handle this. I didn't stop at theory, I built a full expert advisor and started testing it. The EA can mark the 15-minute FVGs, check midpoint reactions, look for high impact areas, detect 1 minute change of character, find the lower time frame FVG, apply the filter, place the trade, move to break even, and lock every step. So yes, we can test this framework. But the problem is that there is not just one version of the framework. Every unclear decision creates another branch. Do we keep an FVG after the indicator invalidates it? Do we require midpoint to hold exactly? Do we enter from the midpoint or the edge? Which 1 minute FVG counts as the one that caused the change of character? Where exactly does the FIP start? How strict should the high impact area be? Which session should we trade? Do we use fixed 4-hour break-even or a runner? When you combine all of that, the number of possible interpretations explodes. I'm doing two things. First, I'm releasing the full EA as a research tool. If you believe the full model has edge, you can take the EA, define your version of the rules, test different settings, and see if you can turn the discretionary framework into something robust. That is the right way to explore this type of strategy. But for the actual video, I need a cleaner question. So the main audit will focus on the higher time frame idea underneath the whole strategy. When price revisits a fresh higher time frame FVG, does that area actually produce useful reactions? That is something we can test without arguing about every 1 minute change of character, every FIP anchor, every discretionary entry and adjustment. If the simplified higher time frame FVG model shows nothing, then the original strategy needs a lot more than just the public rules. If it shows some positive behavior, even if it's not perfect, then the original strategy deserves more benefit of a doubt, because lower time frame refinement could realistically improve the result. So this episode is not the final word on every possible version. This is the kickoff. You get the full EA to continue the research, and we use the simplified EA to answer the cleanest mechanical question first. Here is what I found. The full EA did produce some positive settings, but the overall picture was not strong enough. The result depends too much on interpretation. Change the hidden assumption, the lookbacks, or how strict you are with the rules, and the behavior changes completely. So the full EA is not a pass, it is a research framework. The simplified version was more interesting. On US 30, there was some useful runs, but nothing I would call a finished standalone system. On gold, the concept looks stronger. There were positive clusters, not just one random lucky setting. That does not mean we have a holy grail. It means the higher timeframe FVG revisit idea may have real research value. And this is the kind of strategy where standalone results can be misleading. If it is designed as a low win rate, high R strategy, it can look ugly trade by trade. Long flat periods, many small losses, then one large winner. Alone, that can be hard to trade, but inside a broader portfolio, it can make sense. This is where portfolio testing matters. I don't want to judge every strategy only by whether it looks beautiful alone. Some systems are not meant to be the whole account, they are meant to be one of the return streams. If the FVG model catches occasional large moves, and those moves are not strongly correlated with other strategies, that it can potentially improve the whole portfolio. So this is where I would plug it into the Lens dashboard, compare it with other systems, and check the combined portfolio. Does it reduce stagnation? Does it add convexity? Does it make money when the other strategies are flat or losing? That is the real question. Not is this the one perfect strategy, but does it add something useful to the portfolio? So my final score is full strategy, not a mechanical pass. Simplified FVG revisit concept, promising research candidate. YouTube claims, not proven by the public rules. As always, I'm sharing the tools. Linked below, you will find both expert advisors. The first one is the full version with the moving parts from the original strategy. The second one is the simplified revisit FVG version, which is the cleaner model I focused on in this audit. You also get starting set files, documentation, and access to the Lens dashboard, so you can import your own reports, compare strategies, and build portfolios instead of judging every system in isolation. Take the EAs, test different symbols, test different time periods, and see if you can improve the idea. That is the point of strategy audit. Not to worship the strategy, not to trash it, but to find out what survives contact with data. Next time, I will try to find a viral strategy that is truly mechanical, where the rules are clear enough that we can test it with certainty. Because this one was not a cookbook, it was a discretionary framework, maybe there is an edge in there, but the public rules alone do not prove it. The simplified core deserves more research, and now you have the tools to test it yourself.